So, a week ago I made a video talking about Barbie for like 10 minutes, and then, So yeah, we're doing that again. Since I've already talked about Barbie, it would be a mess if I didn't complete the set and talk about Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. I went down to the cinema the other day, watched it in IMAX, and prepared my thoughts for you all. Also, just before I begin, I know this is a historical film, and again, as with Barbie, I'm a little late to it, but there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet, there's the warning. First of all, while the internet is rife with memes about this film, mainly Cillian Murphy looking just distraught. Despite this, the film is very obviously a serious story, and honestly, throughout you might find yourself making these sort of faces throughout. So in case you've been living under a rock and don't know what this film is about, the story follows the brilliantly intelligent Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer through his invention of the atomic bomb and then the fallout of what happened afterwards. Pun semi-intended. My personal knowledge about this area of history is not the best. The only sort of history courses I've taken is Japanese history, so kind of the opposite side to this story, more just dealing with the aftermath. So going into this, I didn't know too much about the historical background of this, I just knew the bare basics. And so I can't really speak too much about the historical accuracy of the film, but I can speak about how it works as a film. One of the first things I want to talk about was the concept of nuclear weapons themselves. Today we take nuclear weapons almost for granted, just as a vague idea of they are the strongest weapon in many countries' arsenals. In fact, them almost being commonplace now kind of undersells the impact that just one of these weapons can have. The movie, however, never really shies away from the truth around the devastation of it or the sheer technological advancement and development that this weapon was. This is no more clear than in the events of the film directly after the bomb is dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where the weight of the weapon they've created really falls on both Oppenheimer and his team. And the PTSD-like symptoms that Oppenheimer exhibits, A, during his speech after the bombs are dropped, and B, during his hearing years later, it just really makes that fact all the more poignant. We do also see like the wider effects of the existence of a nuclear weapon. It brought up the need to outdo or copy at the very least America's new technology, otherwise be at the mercy of this superior war-ending technology. Then suddenly a new age of weaponry is ushered in. As they talk about some of the final scenes of the film, this first atomic bomb was not the end of the war that they were hoping it to be. It was the start. It was the first event in an entire new generation. Just one atomic bomb has more destructive potential and destructive power than is ever really necessary. But just its inception and its use sparked an arms race that led to many countries having multiple of these weapons or stronger. Because the atomic bomb really was just the first step. Once the atomic bomb was created, they were able to create the hydrogen bomb, which again, they cover in this film. Once the atomic bomb was made and then other countries started trying to copy it, they one-upped, and then the hydrogen bomb was born, which is just even more powerful, about 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb, which is just kind of redundant at that point. Nuclear weapons are a terrifying concept in the real world, and never once did I feel that the film undersold the weight of what a nuclear bomb really is. In fact, it shines light on what nuclear weapons are for people that do undervalue them as a society. After the conversation between Oppenheimer and Einstein at the very end of the film, you are left with the chilling idea that the events of the film and the events of history might really have sparked a chain reaction that could spell the end of the world. The fact that this 3-hour film is able to grip and hit audiences as hard as it does is in no small part to its technical elements. I don't think this really needs to be stated, but Cillian Murphy is an incredible actor, and he plays the titular Oppenheimer incredibly well. In fact, I would say that he carried the movie if the rest of the cast didn't also put up incredibly stellar performances. Like, I didn't think there was any one performance that really fell flat at all. Those terrified looks and expressions that he shows throughout the movie that have been memed to hell online, they work so well in context to sell the weight of the events of the film. I think the most impressive part of Murphy's performance is the fact that a lot of his emotion is kind of told through his eyes. Through a lot of the film, his face is rather flat or stoic. He doesn't show that much emotion. He's playing a character who's a professional who's just doing his job. But you can look into his eyes at any point in the film and you can see the emotion that is hiding underneath. You can see his confidence, you can see his fear, you can see his regret over what he's done. And just the ability of Cillian Murphy to be able to pull that off so well is just incredible. And it's why I think he's the standout performance of the film. The film also tackles the idea of brilliance and intelligence and just scientific development in general. It's a bit of a memed phrase ever since like Batman vs Superman came out, but it works so well here. The idea that you can spend so long wondering whether you can do something that you tend to stop and not worry about whether you should do it. The atomic bomb, while it is absolutely devastating and a massively destructive weapon that has brought about mass amounts of civilian casualties when it was used, it was one of the biggest scientific breakthroughs of the age, which is why you can especially see them celebrating when they've made it. After the successful Trinity launch, you can feel the ecstatic nature of the scientists. This is something they've been working for so long, and now it's done. It's been realized. They've made a completely new breakthrough. However, that happiness gets broken down after the idea of this weapon is going to be used to kill people. And then the luster of it fades away. It's out of their hands. They've passed the weapon on to the military and it gets used and they see the results of that. They see the results of their work and it's honestly devastating. This film is also visibly absolutely beautiful. It extends the wonder of the universe to the audience, showing them the beauty that comes in chaos and serenity, and even the odd beauty in destruction and flames. The audience is able to feel the spectacle of the universe that they might not have even considered beforehand. But the film doesn't just work on the large scale, it takes so much care in the beauty of the small shots as well. Like the close-ups, the inserts, all of them just beautiful. Throughout the film, there are so many shots with such a shallow depth of field that I can just imagine how irritating it would have been to get those shots on both sides of the camera. But it works so well, and you can tell the amount of effort they've put into making the film look as good as it does. Some of the visual storytelling in this film is also incredible. One of the most obvious ones is that throughout this film there are some scenes that are entirely in color and there are some scenes that are in black and white. And as you watch the film, you can kind of come to understand that all the shots that are in color are Oppenheimer's perspective of the events, his own story, whereas the black and white ones are more the outsider's perspective of the story, but mainly from the point of view of Lewis Strauss, who has been a framing device throughout the entire film and then is revealed to be working against Oppenheimer in his own interests. Visuals aside, I think the strongest part of this film is its sound design. The music throughout the film is almost entirely an undertone. Like, I can't really think of many standout scenes that if I was to describe them to you, I would describe the music. Like, when the music's there, it works with the events so well, it just complements it, but it never steals the show away from the picture. But it's also okay to have such an amazing score that it's what you remember from the film. And many great films have soundtracks that are iconic. But Oppenheimer chooses to dial it back and let the story just kind of sit and play, sometimes without music or with just very, very underlying music. On top of that is almost every breathtaking moment in the film is presented in silence or near silence. The biggest example of this is in the Trinity test detonation, where they first detonate the atomic bomb. The audience is brought along and built up with the suspense of the scientists. Like I've mentioned before, it's been 2 years of their work in the making, and now they're going to see if it's all paid off. And then so the suspense builds and builds and builds up until the moment they detonate it. And then there's a flash, and it's silent. Aside from some foley of almost anything except the explosion. The explosion is just silence. You see it rise into the air. You see the fireball curl around, and it is just mesmerizing. It's so quiet that you're holding your breath, not making a noise. And then, as the scene fades, you are hit with the biggest explosion in the film. The film isn't just about using silence. It knows how to use loudness to its advantage as well. The sound of the explosion when it finally hits is so bassy that when it's played through those cinema speakers, it vibrates through the seats, it vibrates through your body. It almost feels like you're feeling the effects of the shockwave itself. I will go out and say this film would honestly not be as spectacular as it was if it wasn't for the impeccable sound design. My only real criticism of the film is that some more casual viewers might find it hard to sit through. After all, it's 3 hours long with very little to no action. It's all build up and dialogue scenes and all coming together, which if you're there just to watch a movie, it might not work out for you in the best way. The film also likes to jump around its timeline quite a bit, starting at Oppenheimer's hearing, and then jumping back in time, and then jumping back to the hearing, then back in time, and then back and forth, to the point where if you're not paying attention, or you weren't expecting it, or you're not good at keeping track of those sorts of things, then you can get lost pretty easily. And because of that, you can also kind of lose track of who some characters are. It has a star-studded cast, so the important characters you can kind of point out. One of the most obvious ones for me was Jack Quaid. As I got through the film, I knew he was Jack Quaid, and I remember his scene where he got introduced, and he was a doctor that was important, and they wanted him, and he was part of the team, but I didn't know who specifically he was. Oh, he was playing Richard Feynman. But that minor gripe aside, I really did enjoy this film, and seeing it for the first time is an experience that I don't think I will be able to easily forget. It really is just such a gripping film, and if you haven't seen it yet, please make sure you go out and look at it, and if you can, go see it in IMAX just to see it in all of its glory. But that is pretty much all that I've got to say about Oppenheimer. If you like the video, make sure you leave a like, leave a comment down below, let me know what you thought about the film, I'd love to hear it. Subscribe to the channel, everything helps out a lot. You can also subscribe to our Patreon by going to the link in the description below, where you get access to a bunch of extra content, including these videos a few days early. Executive producer level patrons also get their names put right here at the end of our videos and in our credits. You can also check out our new website by going to www.morganmovies.com or by clicking the link in the description. Thank you all again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!